Hey everyone, welcome back to World of Tanks with Mechai. Today I am bringing to you the most amazing tank I have ever played in this game. Okay, I'm being a bit exaggerated. No, I'm really not being exaggerated at all. It's the Cromwell British Tier 6 medium tank. This tank, I have seen the light. I've read a lot of things, I've seen a lot of reviews about the Cromwell that always made me a bit interested. I'm like, where people were just saying, oh my god, it's the best tank ever, it's the best medium tank ever, and I was like, it's a tier 6 medium, and if you look at the stats on paper, you're thinking to yourself, what is so special about this pretty unappealing, boxy looking, no armored, not very fast turning, with a really kind of anemic gun tank is this? 75mm gun. What is this tank that everyone's ragging about so much? What is it? It is amazing. This tank has made me see the light with medium tanks. I know the first tank I ever came to you guys talking to you about was the Type 59 medium tank, the premium, that everybody hates. Everyone loves to hate because either they hate getting owned by it or they, they hate not being able to kill it. But if you own one, you know it's one of the best tanks in the game. Well, this tank is the same sort of thing in Tier 6. It's just amazing, and it's not overpowered. It really isn't. I mean, let's start by going over the stats. And you'll understand what I mean by this tank is not overpowered. It has 750 hit points, which at Tier 6 isn't a ton. Like, I have the VK3001H here, for example, which has 670. If I'm not mistaken, the VK3601H was my previous favorite Tier 6 medium. Had, 780 hit points, I think, or 720. That might be changing because it's becoming a heavy in 8.8. And 8.8 is actually due out any day now here. I know it's live on the Russian server and it's live on the EU server, so I don't see any announcements for it this week. I think maybe next week early we'll be getting it on this one. But so hit points, nothing stellar there for the Cromwell. There are tanks that have a lot more hit points than it. For sure, obviously it's a medium tank, so it doesn't need to get that many hit points. So you only have 750. It only weighs 28.5 tons fully loaded, which I do have it fully loaded here. 650 engine power. That's okay. That's a big number for a tank that only weighs a little under 30 tons. So that's a big number. So this tank is fast. And you then further concluded this by the fact it has a 664 speed limit. 664, oh wow, I can't talk. 64 kilometers an hour, which is brisk. But then 36 traverse speed, which isn't awesome. And, you get 34 stock and 36, which is just the standard, 2 increase that you get with most tracks. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. And then you come to the armor. 64 on the front, 32 on the side, 32 on the hull, rear. That's garbage. That's nothing. And you can see it's flat. It's flat, it's flat, it's flat. Flat all around. And then the turret armor really isn't much better. You got 76 on the very, very flat front with no seemingly there's no gun mantling protecting anything. And then you get the very flat sides that have 63 and 57 on the back. Again, flat, flat, flat. This tank has no armor. Make no ifs, ands, or buts about it, okay? If anyone shoots you with any gun that does more than 75 pen, it's going through. You might get a couple lucky bounces on the upper plate if they hit here because it is angled, but anywhere else, it's gonna go through. And there's massive amounts of hull turret to hit on the sides above the tracks, so and your turret isn't gonna bounce anything. You might get a couple lucky bounces off the mantlet, but for me, I remember I was playing in against a leopard the other day with that rapid fire gun he's got, and he was penning me every time for 40 damage. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I mean, that's a tier 5 tank with a tier 4 gun, and he was just trashing me. So armor, you have none. So all you have is hit points to bleed and sacrifice in exchange for doing damage to your enemy. So playing the peekaboo game, playing trades is not going to work. Moving on to, we'll get to the gun in a second. You do get a 48 traverse on the turret, which is very good. That's good. 360 view range is decent, enough to work with. The radio range is actually surprisingly bad at 550. That's not very good at all. Then we have the gun choices, and there's a lot of them, and actually none of them are atrocious. Just, they really aren't amazing. They don't blow the doors off. If you've played the Churchill line, the heavy tanks for the British, you're going to have almost all these guns unlocked anyways because most of the British tanks all have the same rapid fire, low caliber size gun types. So you're going to have this gun if you've had any of the Churchills. You will need the turret to unlock it. We'll go look at the tech tree on it really quick. You do need the turret to unlock the 2 best guns that you will have unlocked, but you're going to have to get that. You also do need the tracks to unlock anything, because I don't even think you can put equipment on this thing when it's stock. It's got such a low load limit. So you're going to need to do that. But then you can put on this 75 Vickers HV that you get on the Churchill 7. And no, it's not a great gun, but it is a good gun, and it is a reliable gun, and it's a gun you can count on to do DPM, which is what the British tanks are all about. This shouldn't be any news to anybody who's played any of the British tanks. 15.3 rounds a minute, it means it's basically a machine gun, with an average damage of 135, which is a bit anemic, which is why I called it that when I first introduced it, because the damage is not very high. Penetration is 145. You know, that's not great. The VK36, the short 88, for example, I think has, what, 130 pen or 125 pen or something like that, which is a little bit less. So the penetration isn't terrible here. It just, 145 sounds so low for a tier 6 tank. But I'm pretty sure, you know, it's on par with a lot of tanks. I think the ARL, you know, a heavy French tank has a lot of penetration compared to this, like 160 or something. So the penetration is great, but the gold round does get 202 penetration. That is pretty decent at tier 6. That's going to go through a lot of things. I mean, you can go through a lot of tier 8s with that kind of penetration. Maybe not frontally per se, but you really should never be attempting to attack any tank in this tank with this Cromwell frontally. It doesn't matter what you're attacking, because he's going to pen you. So, and the gold rounds aren't super expensive. Let's take a quick look here. They're 2,800 credits, so not atrocious. And here you can see my loadout. It holds a ton of ammunition, which is great because you're going to be firing a lot. I've got 18 premium, which you can even bump that up a little bit, and then just a couple of high explosives for, you know, arty or resetting the cap or whatever. And then obviously your full rack of consumables. I have a gun rammer on it, and I have a fan on it, and I have a toolbox on it because my crew was pretty new when I put them in, and they didn't even have repairs. They do now, but I put the toolbox on to help, because getting tracked in this Cromwell is death. You'll be killed immediately, and if anybody knows how the Cromwell works, if anyone sees a tracked Cromwell, they should and will shoot it to death, because you need this tank off the field because it's dangerous. Why is it so dangerous? Well, oh, and by the way, the reason I have a toolbox is because I really don't like anything else. I suppose you could put coated optics to get the view range up, or a gun lane drive, but since the Comet can use a vert stab, I didn't decide to buy one of these, but I'm going to change that because the Cromwell is a certified keeper tank. I am keeping the crap out of this tank because it's amazing. And if you want to know why I think it's so amazing, I'm going to pull you into my service record, and I'm going to brag about stats. Yay! Because everyone likes bragging about stats. Here's a Cromwell. I only have had this tank for 2 weeks. I got it 2 weekends ago. I've played 53 battles in it. I have a 68% win rate. I got my mastery badge in the first like 10 battles with it. And here are the stats with it. 53 battles, 68% win rate. Survival rate's not great. 93 kills, so I'm almost at a 2-to-1 kill ratio with it. I haven't had any top guns in it, but I've had a couple Confederates, a bunch of snipers, great hit ratio, and then I am in the 9th percentile for overall performance. Almost 1,000 experience a battle in it. And I had one game where I got 2,000 experience, which I think I will be one of the games I show you. I have had nothing but amazing games in this tank. There's been a couple battles where I've been killed very quickly and very efficiently by arty, because people know to get me out of the battle very quickly. But I've been low tiered in this tank a ton. It doesn't matter. This tank is so freaking dangerous. It's unbelievable. I can't even like put it into words for you. It's amazing because it's so statistically underwhelming looking. But this tank is a battle controlling monster. It's so fast. The gun shoots so quickly, and it's relatively accurate at what is the accuracy? 0.36. Like I said, relatively accurate. Actually, the accuracy and the aim time are what really lets this gun down, not the penetration, not the damage. If it was a tad bit more accurate and then had a little bit faster aiming time, it would be almost an overpowered gun. It is not an overpowered gun, though. That balances it out. And why you wish you could put a vert stab on it, because it would get that aim time down a little bit. But this tank is so good at moving around, controlling flanks, getting around tanks, circling tanks, and just causing absolute chaos. It's a lot like the Type 59 to me, except it's faster and it has a smaller profile. It's just an amazing tank, and it's the reason I'm going to be keeping it for sure. And I have carried tons of battles in it. I've carried battles by myself. I've carried battles in platoon mates, but almost every battle I've played with it has been magic, and it's why I'm never, ever, ever getting rid of it. So, in general, going over a quick overview of what the tank has is it's got no armor. It's completely weak to anything that shoots at it. Tier 4, Tier 5, doesn't matter. It's going to pen it. It doesn't have a huge hit pool, but it has enough to make work of it. Kind of like how I said with the Type 58. It has enough hit points to just absorb. But whereas the Type 58 had armor, this does not. But this trades its armor for speed, and tons of speed. It'll hit its top speed consistently of 64. On the flat, it'll do in the mid-60s. Going downhill, it'll do easily in the 70s. Going uphill, it'll hold high 40s to 50s. It's just so speedy. And what you do is use that speed to get around people and then let your allies chew them to shreds while you've got their attention, or you can chew them to shreds while they're attacking your allies who they think are more dangerous than you are, but they're wrong. This tank is one of the most dangerous tanks on the battlefield, and I understand now why Quickie Baby, why Circumflexes, why Jingles, why all these guys acknowledge this tank to be so absolutely deadly. And now I'm going to put it into some games and show you why. And interestingly enough, both games I'm going to show you, I'm low-tiered against Tier 8s. And like I said, I've been low-tiered plenty of times in this tank, and it doesn't matter. If you're patient and you know how to make this thing work, you can just pound through the enemies, and you can make this tank just own the battlefield. And so, without further ado, let's get some battle with this thing. Alright guys, we're going to take a look here at some Cromwell gameplay. And we're going to take a look at this one. We are on South Coast. It's me, I'm tuned up with Frodo and his Type 58, which as you all know is a tank I very much adore. And he's still grinding up to get his IS-2. I am in my Cromwell, and we are in what looks like to be a not very great matchup for us because we're low-tiered. And there's 3 Tier 8 tanks, and then a slew of Tier 7s, and then it's Frodo and I making up the bottom. However, it does look like we're on a good team, and we are on South Coast, which is a map I think really favors medium tanks. And as you're going to see here, yeah, it favors the Cromwell and Type 58 quite well. So we're going to get this started here. Let's speed up this to get through the countdown. Alright. When I'm in a medium tank, or I'm in a faster heavy, or a TD, I like to go up to the north part of the map, or technically it's kind of the west side of the map because it's on the 0 line. Particularly coming up from the north, which is where we are. We spawn in the north. And we're going to head towards the west side of the map and try to push up and get some spots on people. Now, because we're low-tiered, I'm telling Frodo and I that we need to play kind of conservatively, work as spotters, and try to get ourselves into a position where we can get around circles and kill off some of these tanks as they run in. Hopefully they run in and, walk into us one at a time so we can tear them apart. So I'm up here trying to spot for some guys, and we don't really have anything going. We got a few guys pushing to the beach, a bunch of guys pushing up to the ridge. Pretty standard fare for South Coast in the first few minutes. I'm going to speed this up. Moving in, moving in, moving in. I don't see anybody. Right here, I'll show you what I'm looking at. I'm trying to look at the that middle ridge right at G6, where a lot of guys like to sit and hide. Here we spot a Type 58, one of their smaller medium tanks, Tier 6. And Frodo and I are here, and this match was actually just yesterday. So I've got a pretty good memory of what we were doing. Frodo and I are like, should we go get him? Should we not? Should we go get him? And we're trying to second guess each other. And I'm like, alright, hang on, let me poke, make sure nothing else here is going to scare us to death. I don't see anything so far. Him and I are just sort of wheeling back and forth, trying to see if we can spot something. And, oh, there's a Jag Tiger 88. So I decide, okay, I'm going around him. I load some premium ammunition. That shell, I can't believe that shell missed. Tell Frodo to move on, I'll finish the Jag. Okay, he's gone. And Type 58 gets killed. There's a Cromwell behind us. We turn around. The one thing I think I want you to take away most about the Cromwell is its ability to move around the map and dictate situations. Right now, Frodo and I are using our medium tanks to great advantage of just being able to whip around and get the attention of targets and try to flank them. So we see an SU, which is a very dangerous tank against any of us. He could probably one-shot either of us. So I go up, Try to sneak a track shot and then misses. And I see he's poking, so I back up. T-34 engages. I tell Frodo, get around the side of him. I'm going to try and track him. Alright, so he takes a shot. I know I've got 10 to 12 seconds. Put one of the tracks. Doesn't track him, but does good damage. I'm just loading normal ammunition at this point. No more premium. That one bounces. T-34 finishes him. Awesome. So at this point, I'm looking at the map and I'm noticing that we are losing the beach, it looks like. They pushed almost all their tanks that way, and we just mopped up a few of the stragglers that were in the middle. So I tell Frodo and the T-34 to go back to base, which they both oblige and do. The Type 59 and I are going to push up and go arty hunting, because they do have 2 Hummels. And I don't want them to start, sniping out and taking out our tanks, as they're getting pushed back by a pretty heavy push from the beach. Right now we're just trading tanks 1 and 2. It's even. They just took out Churchill. Frodo's working up the middle to try and get behind and start flanking some of the heavies. I find the Hummel. Boom. Ammo rack. On the move. Awesome. Whipping around here in the hills. It's in the mid to high 60s. It's just driving around and causing mayhem is what this tank does best. Here we go. Engaging the Hummel. Dive off the cliff and dodge the shot. He's tracked down, and I'm just going to finish him. He's done. Okay, 2 arties down. 3 kills, a little bit over 1,000. And it looks like our team is actually holding. It's holding up pretty well against the Tier 8 push and Tier 9 or 7 push on the beach. Frodo's now in there mixing it up, taking some shots at the T-20 and T-29. He's asking for some help, though, because they are focusing on him. So I'm going to drive in and try to cause a little bit of mayhem on the beach using my magnificent speed. Alright, we get around the corner. Frodo sees he's got the T-29. I said, alright, I'll take the T-20. I'm trying to track him. There it is. He's tracked. There we go. Frodo fishes off the T-20. And I'm looking now. The Type 59 is capping, but we do have a Comet and a Super Pershing that are pushing up the base with some success. Now the only tanks back, but they are still 2 dangerous tanks. So I asked the Type 59 politely, no cap, to which he obliges and decides to come and help us hunt down these guys. The Comet's now dead. He had almost no health, but the Super Pershing's up there, and he's still at full health. So this is a juicy opportunity to get a few more damage points and potentially kill against a Tier 8. So Frodo and I are on full engagement here. And this is what the Comet does so well. If you'll notice, I've almost done a complete circle of the entire map. And South Coast isn't a small map. It's a whole kilometer across. And we still have 8 minutes left in the battle, and I could have, I've stopped to take shots and engaged. I could have done 2 full rings on this map without, with only about 5 to 10 minutes. And here's exactly what you want. Tier 6 tank against Tier 8 premium. And I tell Frodo, get him. And there it is. There it is. A great match rounded up by Frodo and I. And a Brothers in Arms medal earned right there at that last kill. And I got a little over 1,600 damage in a Tier 8 battle, which, isn't phenomenal, but it was pretty, pretty tasty. That's a kind of matchup that you actually don't mind in the Cromwell is being low tiered, but on a wide open map where the terrain and the size of the map work to your advantage of having speed and maneuverability to get around and mess with people. And Frodo is also in a tank. And Type 58 isn't exactly, it's not fast, it's not like the Cromwell, but it isn't slow, and it's definitely a good flanking tank, which I showed you in my last review, where you can it has a better gun than the Cromwell for sure. It does more damage, it's got a little bit more penetration, and I feel like it's a little bit, it isn't more accurate, but I think it aims a little faster. I don't know, I like the gun better on the Type 58. But the Cromwell's gun is still very good. So let's get into the stats, and I'll show you how that battle turned out for us. Alright, here we are looking at the post-game stats from that battle on South Coast. As you can see, Brothers in Arms medal secured by Frodo and I, with getting 3 kills each. 3,324 doubled. Not bad, considering it was a Tier 8 game that we were in our Tier 6s in. And, not a long laundry list of damage and kills, but, it was a crucial battle nonetheless that I feel like Frodo and I did a great job carrying as Tier 6 premiums. Their team did push really hard at the beach, and our team was over there too to keep them down, but Frodo and I basically ran around amok and tore apart any of the other guys that were trying to do any flanking maneuvers on our team. like the Jag Tiger, their Type 58, and I think there was, who else was up there that we got? Oh, their SU-152, that's right. And then I went around to secure the arty kills and make sure that they couldn't get any support from them, and then it was basically a choice of whether we wanted to cap or tear them apart. Not amazing damage for Frodo and I, but I mean, what we did was we made a count. We took apart the weakest tanks that had the least amount of HP and confirmed the kills, and then ran around and just kept doing that. And with that 6 kills between us, great job, great effort in a Tier 8 battle. Really just showing how medium tanks can work together in a platoon and just own the battlefield by just using advantageous positioning and tactics, which is what we did very well there. And so congrats to Frodo and myself on that for just having a good game. 1108 base experience is really good. I mean, any day of the week I'll take that. A quad digit experience in a low tier battle is awesome. So 18 shots fired, 14 hits. There was a couple of weird misses there. A couple shots I took on the move, which missed, of course. But most of them penetrated. I only used premium rounds against the Jag Tiger 88 because I want to make sure that I hit him and killed him because it's too dangerous a target not to. The Cromwell, of course, has no armor and very limited hit pool, so you can't really afford to trade a lot of damage. And I didn't even take a shot. Like, I didn't know if a shot came in my direction in that game. The Jag Tiger did miss me when I sprung out and then got him. So covered 3.39 kilometers right there, showing the magnificent and epic and brutal speed that the Cromwell has at its disposal, which is its greatest strength. Its maneuverability isn't phenomenal. The 36 Traverse is okay, it's good enough, but really it's the speed of this tank that makes it so deadly. And then having a very high rate of fire DPM gun that when you get around people has enough penetration to go through just about anything, and if it doesn't, then you can load some premium shells, which also aren't going to break the bank on you. So 1600 damage isn't bad in a Cromwell. I had games where I definitely had more damage and did more there, but it was just what we did. Frodo and I basically just helped push one side and then go around and complete the sweep, which is what medium tanks should do. Be advantageous and just run around and cleaning up what it can. You don't want to run into bad situations, getting pinned and getting shot at by heavies and TDs. That's not what mediums do. Mediums need to be free, and they need to try to control the flanks. So Frodo and I did a great job there of doing that, and that's what the Cromwell is. The Cromwell is a tactical battle control tank. It can just maneuver itself and get into positions where it can control flanks. And it isn't on paper, it's really not a great tank, but in practice, I found this tank is almost the most powerful tank I've ever driven just because of its ability to move and get into positions where it can really mess with teams. Whether it's spotting, whether it's doing flanking damage, or whether it's just driving around and just getting everyone's attention, aggroing the team. This is what it can do. And there's just so many abilities and options. It's such a flexible tank. And I feel like flexibility in this game is like the most powerful attribute a tank can have. So we're going to jump into another battle. I'm kind of spoiled for choice for which ones I want to show you, but I'll pick the one that I think will showcase something pretty special, and we'll get to that one next. Alright, and here we are with the second battle I'm going to show you, and I believe this is one of the first battles I played in this tank after I got it fully upgraded, so it's probably like within the first 10 battles I had. And once again, I am low tiered, and I'm playing with my friend Adam, mine is Urza. He's in his M6, tier 6 heavy tank, the American, and he's got his fully upgraded as well with the 90 mil. And we are on Cliff, a map that I've been getting quite a bit recently, and I've been very happy to see it again. It's like one of those tanks, one of those maps, that I remember being on quite a bit towards the beginning of the game, but ever since like all these new maps came out, I feel like this one's been kind of thrown to the side, but it's been re-emerging, and I've been on it a lot, and I'm glad because it's a great medium tank map, or TD map. And we're on the north, and we're low-tiered, and we are going to try and control the middle of the map here, in the middle, which I like to call the bear ears, because if you look at Cliff sideways, from right to left, it looks like a bear who's going out to hug you, like this, bear. So, when we say we're going to the bear's ears, I mean we are going to E3 and F3. Those are the two bear's ears where you can kind of play around. You have shots on the ridge below you, the 1-2 line, and you've got shots on the guys who are camping around the hill on the 7 and 8 line, and you can kind of play around with the bases on either side. So it's a really dangerous area to be. I mean, if you're not smart, it's a great area to get your ass kicked immediately and get artied to death, which happens to me a few times when I play on this map. But it's just a great location for smaller, quicker tanks to just sort of pop around and just mess up everybody's day. So, well, we're going to get this one started, and Adam and I are going to head up to the middle. One of the things I don't know if I mentioned in the intro part of this, the review of the tank in the beginning of the garage, was the gun depression on this tank. It is phenomenal. It's I don't know what the degrees are. It doesn't matter. It's just great. Trust me. It's awesome. You get great gun depression with this tank, like you do in a lot of British medium tanks, I've found. The Covenanter and the Crusader had pretty decent. I think the Comet's got decent gun depression from what I've seen. And I already have the Comet unlocked. I just haven't bought it because I need garage slots, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with my garage. But I am not getting rid of this magical piece of equipment. So, gun depression, also a plus, on top of all the other great things about this tank. So, I'm rushing in to get a decent spot. I'm trying to ping the team because everyone is moving up to the 6 line. And I'm trying to tell our TDs to go and enforce the 1-2 line. We're going to put myself in my mode, see what I'm looking at. I'm backtracking around, trying to help Adam get across, make sure no one starts shooting at his flank because he's trying to get across. The M6 is a fast tank, but it is a heavy, so it's it's not going to truck anywhere. And I want him with me because he's got that great 90 mil that has a great alpha damage. I mean, even at tier 6, it's against tier 8, it still hits really hard. I mean, the T29 starts with it, and you can make it work. So here we go, an SU-122-44, a very dangerous tank. I'm shooting normal AP, taking a quick shot. I am playing a little bit of peekaboo here, which typically is very dangerous in this tank, but there's a lot of targets out there, and I'm hoping that the SU will be occupied. And he was, and Adam blasts him with his 90 mil. Get him off there. That's good because SU-122-44s are bad news for equal tier and lower tier tanks. This replay speed looks a little wonky. So I'm up here playing around at the rocks, which is one of my favorite spots on this map from either side, north or south. Doesn't matter. It's a great position. Got a stock ARL-44 peeking out here. Excuse me. He's completely stock. He's got the house for the turret. And I'm telling Adam, okay, we're going to track this guy, and then we're just going to pull out and tear him apart. Adam tracks him, and I'm just putting shots into his flank, playing a little peekaboo, letting Adam aggro him and take the damage. He pops me one time, 200 damage, not a big deal. Pop out again, and Adam and I finish him. That was great, efficient killing there. There's an E2 here, which is a dangerous target because of his armor. He plugs me, and I'm telling Adam, oh man, try to aggro this guy so I can get around him. So Adam steps up, takes a quick shot. I'm trying to tell him to track him too so I can get around him. I'm trying to keep an eye on the map. I'm going to pause here for a second because there's a lot of things going on here. You saw me sort of whipping around looking. There's an AT-15 and a T-28 prototype, two very deadly Tier 8 TDs on the bottom below us against an SU-122-44 and a low. So I know that we have to break this engagement with the E2 quickly so that we can help them. And I'm noticing on the top that their team is pushing really hard around the Cape, which I'm not too worried about yet. I'm more worried about these two really powerful TDs below us. So I'm trying to keep all this in mind while trying to focus on how to kill this E2 quickly. Alright, Adam's getting a couple pings hit on him. I'm telling him to back up. Let's see if we can't get this guy to make a mistake. There's a VK helping us too. So I pop out, try to track, miss. So I'm like, screw this. I'm going around this guy. He needs to go. Get around the side, and I'm going to try to out-juke him. He misses. I juke him. He kills my driver, puts one shot at me, but Adam and I 1-2 him there really quick to finish him off. I repair my driver at some point. We're backing up now. Okay, driver's back in. Alright, now, I know we need to get down there and help these two guys with these TDs that are down here. There's a Prot over here somewhere, and I don't want to get spotted by him because a Prot can basically one-shot me at this point. So he is actually facing this way, so that's really bad. I didn't notice that. Take a couple quick shots, see if I could just get his attention, get him off the VK and Adam. But he's not buying it. So I'm pinging the map because a lot of our tanks are on the other side or in the middle, and we need some help over here. And then I see an AT-8, which is also a pretty deadly target at tier 6. I'm trying to tell Low that to engage the Prot because he's engaged with us right now. And we are up, but we are sort of losing tanks now. And I'm just trying to get a peek at the middle of the battlefield because nobody's there, and I want to make sure that we aren't going to get, outflanked by somebody. Meanwhile, I'm telling Adam just to try and keep an eye on the Prote, so if we can get rear shots, we can take them. I get snuck in a shot by the VK, who popped out of nowhere, and I need to back up because I am now one-hittable for most of the tanks on the battlefield. Except for that Jackson, who's now dead. But everything else, except for the AT, can one-shot me. I see a VK. The VK who shot me there, he's apparently interested in something else. So I'm going to try tracking him, which is always a good tactic when you have a rapid-fire gun. Track the tank first, then just tear into him. And he's busy shooting at something else. I don't know what, but he's not looking at me. And if he looks at me, I've got the speed to back up. You can easily juke and dodge things in this tank. So I'm just going to try to finish him off quickly. Set him on fire and he's gone. And the KV-1S ninjas my kill. I hate that. Alright, so now I know that I'm at least got some protection. I see the air tanks have pulled up around the 7 line on the hill, so I can go engage these TDs down here. The VK pops the AT-8, which is good. And now we just have a T-28, albeit a very powerful tank, to take, and a T-29. And Adam tracks the Prote, which is amazing, so I can get in there now and get some side shots and just finish this guy off. He's never going to be able to turn fast enough to get me. There he is. And I haven't even shot a round of premium yet. I've done everything AP just by flanking. It's just an awesome, awesome tank to flank against. That's what makes this tank so powerful. Now we got some cheap side shots here on the T-29 just to finish this guy off. And I'm just going to rapid fire him to death. He can one-shot me, so I do need to be somewhat careful, but he's got his attention focused on 2 other tanks. Oh, now he sees me pull up, hide. And he's dead. But not after I plugged in a whole bunch of shots into him to milk out some XP. And that's the victory right there. I mean, that is... I've played... this day, this was the first weekend I had this tank. Adam and I actually went through and played 10 straight games in this tank. In Tier 6. He was in his M6 and I was in his Cromwell. And I don't even think we lost a single game. And most of them we were low-tiered, very similar to this, or in Tier 7 games, where the guns can easily shred the Cromwell in 2 or 3 shots, no problem. I mean, Tier 7s like the SU-122-44, the SU-152, these tanks can either one-shot or destroy the Cromwell without any mercy. I mean, there's just, you have no armor, remember that. But it didn't matter because what you saw, like I did there, was just used the bear's ears, I love calling it that, use the bear's ears to get positional observation on all the enemy tanks around, and then just use the accurate and fast-firing gun just to take shots and track people and get around them and put them in a bad spot. And I will say that my team played very well. We had an AMX AC-48, which had 5 kills. He did a good job. He was pushing actually on the top. He did a great job. You know, the team played very well together. And I had Adam for backup, and the M6 has enough armor that it can at least, bounce a couple shots, particularly from that E2, which the E2 is a very dangerous target for the Cromwell frontaway because you're not going to pen his front armor, and he can pen you all day. And I mean, his gun's fast-firing enough that he can shred you very quickly. So, I mean, there was plenty of opportunities there where I could have been destroyed very, very quickly, but juking and dodging and nipping in and out and getting around guys and dodging their shots and making them miss, and just catching them when they're at their most vulnerable points, you can own almost any tank one-on-one in this thing. I mean, that T-20 prototype, I was a little bit passive with him. I could have probably earlier, if the AT-8 had him in there backing him up, I could have gone around and circled him before he'd even had a chance to take one shot at me, probably, because the tank's so slow. I mean, that's one of the deadliest Tier 8 tanks in the game. So, it's just an awesome tank that has the ability to control any situation it's in, as long as it isn't like grossly outnumbered or against a tank that's very, very nimble, which there aren't many tanks that are more nimble. Like a KV-1S might be a problematic tank for the Cromwell, but because his rate of fire is so poor, you can probably just out-trade him and then dodge him. So, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of chances to show in these battles a lot of one-on-ones per se. It was more of like me just controlling the whole flank and attacking a variety of targets. But I can promise you, I mean, I showed you the stats, and I've had a lot of success with this tank. I can promise you that in one-on-one engagements, you can whip around and circle people to the point where they're just so frustrated they're taking shots out of frustration instead of actually trying to hit you. So it's just, oh, I love this tank to death. So let's pop in and look at the stats of this battle. Alrighty, so here we've got the post-game stats from that last one, and we're going to wrap up my summation on the Cromwell, the brilliant Tier 6 British medium tank. I almost got myself confused there in a tongue twister. So we can see this was the game that secured me my Mastery badge with Ace Tanker. And also noticing, I didn't really see this when I was looking at XVM when we started it, only 39% chance to win that game. So just a good job of my team working to get together very well. And Adam and I doing a good job holding up that Bears Ears area in the middle of the cliff map up there. So almost 2,000 XP base without a doubling or anything. Or I mean, it was with premium. It's 1,300 base, but yeah, without any doubling, this was, in the middle. Like I said, we're in the middle of a 10-game streak here with our tier 6s, where we almost just never lost, and we're tearing through. Finished top of the list, actually in front of the AMX, who I actually did more damage than anybody else on my team. Being low tiered with Tiger 2, a low, and an AMX 48, and some other TDs that could have easily done more damage than me. I mean, taking into account that the Cromwell only does an average of about 135, 140 damage a shot. So I was just laying it out there, and finishing top on a low-tiered game always feels pretty special to you, and it does happen quite frequently for me in the Cromwell. I took 28 shots, 22 direct hits. 2 of them didn't pen, but I think it's because they were track shots that I was going for. Tons of damage, 2,600. I mean, that's a ton of damage. And I was just looking really quick. I average almost 1,200 damage a game in this tank, which is 1.5 times the amount of HP that the tank has, which is just a great result. I mean, the rule of thumb in this game is you had a good game if you did your HP. As long as you're not a TD, and a TD you should always do double your HP. But I mean, I did well over almost triple here. I mean, almost quadruple the amount of damage, and it's just a great outcome. It took 4 shots. Obviously, all 4 of them penned. I was on minimal health. Damaged 6 enemies, but I destroyed 1, so I didn't get a Confederate. Just a little bit of spotting damage. I usually do a little bit of spotting damage, but the view range isn't great on this tank, which doesn't help you a ton, and the signal range can let you down. So I didn't fire any premium, so this is a pretty good estimation of what the cost would be, in a decent game. So you'd lose about 10,000 resupplying, and I did use a med kit to repair my driver. But I still made 40,000, almost 41,000 with premium accounts. So I mean, it's a decent little earner too. If you start shooting premium rounds though, and you start shooting a lot of them, you're gonna have this number dip down. And I've had games where I used all the premium rounds, and it did end up costing me. So don't think you can get away with that too much. It was a relatively quick battle. So just to wrap up the Cromwell, these 2 games were ones where I kind of showed 2 different tactics you can have. In the first game on South Coast, I showed you how you can kind of skirt around the map using your speed to just take out targets of opportunity, like already, getting behind bigger tanks and just causing, a lot of destruction by using your speed and covering the map. In the second game there on Cliff, I kind of showed you how you can kind of pin yourself up in a good spot, an advantageous location above a lot of targets to give yourself a lot of angles to attack, and then you can poke out and use your team to try and help you just whittle down targets until they're dead. And basically, I was playing a positional game on Cliff there, just holding down the middle and basically giving the enemy no shelter. There really wasn't anywhere except for the cape and their base that they could have hid from me. And I had Adam there backing me up with his big gun to just sort of stamp our authority on the situation, and really didn't let their TDs on the 1-2 line advance ahead to take out our low on the SU. Because they would be worried about us shooting them in the back. So really, it was 2 different tactics I showed you there. And there's more tactics, which I mentioned at the end of that last game, which is you can go out and do one-on-ones and circle people to death and just sort of go 1-to-1-to-1. But that's that's a third tactic, I'd say, and that one's probably the hardest one to pull off consistently because it's not easy that you get one-on-one engagements in battles, unless it's a big wide open map or it's towards the end of the battle when there aren't so many tanks. That's one thing I will stress. You need to stay alive in the Cromwell. It is an amazing tank to have alive when there's like 3 or 4 tanks left on the battlefield, because for the most part, unless they're staying together, you can single tanks out and destroy them with reckless abandon. and there really isn't much they can do about it because they probably won't be fast enough to deal with you. Ducking and diving or whatever, or you can use your amazing gun depression to hull down a little bit. The only problem is if they shoot you in the turret, it's probably going to go through. But you can give yourself the smallest possible silhouette so that they don't have great shots on you. But that, like I said, that's more of an opportunistic strategy that will only appear in certain circumstances. Whereas the other two strategies I showed you, where you can just flank around and take control of one side of the whole map, or pin yourself up in a really good spot and take advantage of having good sight range and the ability to pin guys in, is something you can do readily and all the time, because they have to respect the fact that you can reposition, a couple 100 meters very quickly and cover a bunch of different spots. Cliff is really good for that. I'm trying to think of other maps that come to mind. Like El Haloof is a really good map for the Cromwell too, because you can use its speed to just sort of navigate from spot to spot, picking off targets. It's really a tank you want on a big open map, like Steps and El Haloof. Muravenka to an extent, it's a little small, that can cause some problems. Malinovka comes to mind. Those big open maps can really benefit this tank because it increases the chances that you can poke out and find tanks in compromising positions. But it's also a great city map tank because it's so fast and you can nip around, you can run around and do drive-bys. Unfortunately, I don't get a lot of city maps in this tank. There aren't a lot of city maps in World of Tanks, so you're predominantly going to be on some sort of field map, and it's just a great tank for those field maps. Highway comes to mind too as a great map where you can skirt around the edges and just sort of like take shots at people and while keeping yourself somewhat hulled down, hidden, and just zipping around. It's just a great tank for controlling the battlefield. You need to find a way to stay alive, because it's a particularly good tank at the end when you need to go arty hunting, or if there's just a couple stragglers on low health, this tank can just find them and machine gun them to death before they even know that you showed up. It's got a relatively decent camo rating. You could probably put on some camo to make it a little bit more easier to hide. You could put a camo net on it if you want, but because it's such a maneuverable tank, that probably won't help you very much. Put a camo skill on the crew, that might help. My crew, as you can see here, there's a review. They weren't even 100% when I did this game. That's how new this tank was to me at the time, because I think they started on 75 for me, because I came from a light tank going into the Cromwell, which is the first medium tank of the range. So really, the Cromwell is a very opportunistic tank. You can't just go in, charging in, guns blazing, expect to come out ahead. You have to be tactical. You have to be advantageous and opportunistic of the map and of who you're facing. It's a thinker's tank. Medium tanks are thinker's tanks. They're very good at all around, and if you know how to put them in the right spot, you can just positively blast and own anybody who you come up against. But you need to be patient, and you need to be clever. You do. It favors that kind of gameplay. It doesn't favor charging in and trying to just trade shots and just running into people. That'll never work for you. I mean, there are times you can charge in and cause general mayhem, if there's a lot of tanks, because it is fast enough to just sort of skirt through. But man, I would really limit that to situations maybe where you have a ton of support fire to rain down on them, so you can just get a lot of spotting damage while you run through. But that's the thing though, this tank is so flexible. It's a very flexible tank. The only thing it can't really do is trade shots. You can't trade. But you can do some peekaboo, you can do juking and dodging, and you can do scouting runs, and you can do flanking arty hunts, and you can do all kinds of different things. That's what the strengths of this tank are. So, I'm going to stop rambling about it because I can't stop. And I'm going to go play some more battles in it right now. And actually, I'm going to put some camo on it. That was a good thing I just reminded myself I should do. I hope that this has helped you guys see how great of a tank this is, and if you haven't decided to go up this medium line, maybe you should. I don't think it's a good line. I will give there some caveat here. Don't go up this line if it's one of the first lines you're going to go up. Like, it's not a good line for beginner tankers, primarily because you got to deal with the light tanks in the beginning, and then medium tanks are really for people who know the maps very well, also know how to handle each tank well. Like, I mean, I've been playing this game, I'm nearing 10,000 battles now, so I know all the maps by heart, I know all the tanks by heart, I know all the weaknesses and strengths of the maps and the tanks. That's why this tank is very, I feel like, you need to know those. Those are pieces of information you need to know to make this tank work the best. So, it's a good tank for the learning to advanced player, the intermediate to advanced player. I don't think it's a good tank for beginners per se, but it is a great tank, and hopefully this is giving you guys an idea how to play it. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments below, and hopefully I can answer them, or other people can answer them. If you like this video, please subscribe and like it. That's greatly appreciated. And this is Mr. Mac Guy signing off.